important thing that I would want to highlight, if you're gonna really focus a lot on like assignments and acquiring deals on assignment or being the assignor. So if you want your portfolio to have a lot of that dynamic in it, it's really important to surround yourself with people who are also like-mindedly experienced in financing those transactions. For example, unfortunately, we had a deal where the financing would not come to the table, and it was an institution, like it was a bank, and they just did not understand or want to approve the financing with the assignment component to it.
What's going on, YouTube? It's Lynn Matheson here, aka the Canadian Cottage Girl, and I'm joined today by Ryan Carson from Carson Law, and we are going to be breaking down what you need to know when working with your lawyer and lender on assignment deals. And guys, if you like today's video, stop right now and smash that like button. Also subscribe to the Canadian Real Estate channel, where we always have a ton of great real estate investor friendly content, and we break down a ton of different topics. So let's jump right into it today. Ryan, thank you for coming on to the channel.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's break it down a little bit. Start from the top. First of all, we'll give a quick little overview for people who are unfamiliar with assignment deals, and then we'll break down how you should actually prepare and work with your lawyer and lender.
Sure, that sounds great. So maybe we should make sure everybody understands what an assignment is.
Yes.
So generally speaking, an assignment's going to have three parties. There's going to be the actual property owner, who is the seller, right? So you will use the example as you are the seller. So you are selling a property, and I come along and I'm a buyer. So I'm party number two. And so we enter into an agreement of purchase and sale together. And so we have a firm deal, and I'm going to buy from you.
Right.
But we put into that agreement a clause that says either party, but specifically me, the buyer, has the right and ability to assign the deal to another third party. And so, we'll have that be Matt. So Matt comes along, and Matt actually acquires the property as the second buyer, or we'll call him the assignee.
Right.
But he does his deal with me, who is the now assigner. So I'm assigning my rights in the agreement of purchase and sale with you to Matt, and then Matt essentially at the end of the day buys directly from you, and you sell directly to him. And then the assignment agreement, which was between me and Matt, basically sees Matt provide me whatever funds or other consideration that is listed in the assignment agreement between assignee buyer and assignor.
Understood. Yeah. And so the breakdown of that kind of three parties in the deal, essentially there also has to be three lawyers representing each party in the deal. Right. So it makes it a little bit more dynamic around closing. So it's important that if you're entering into an assignment agreement, that you understand the dynamics when working with all three lawyers and who is responsible for what. So let's break that down a little bit further. So I, the seller, have a lawyer, and you, the buyer number one, would have a lawyer, and Matt, the buyer number two, would also have a lawyer. So what's the dynamic there, and who's responsible for what? Yeah,
no, exactly right. So depending on whether the deal is like private or with an agent, they can be done both ways. Usually, me coming along and buying from you, the homeowner, there's a deposit. And so sometimes that deposit is made and held in trust by a realtor, if there is a realtor involved. Or if the realtor is not involved, then normally I would make my deposit payment to your lawyer. Or to one of our lawyers. One of the lawyers is going to hold this deposit, right? Then all of a sudden Matt and I are negotiating, and we're involved. And similarly with the assignment agreement itself, there's going to be a deposit that needs to be made, typically. And that again is going to be, in that case, normally held with one of the lawyers, because there's normally not an agent typically involved in that part of it. I guess there could be, but most of the time that what we see, it's lawyer and lawyer, right? And so the lawyers essentially are going to be deposit holders in the part of the process we've talked about so far. And then what will happen is, as the deal gets closer and closer to the actual closing date, let's say November 30th, where Matt is going to buy from you, that transaction acts no different than a regular purchase and sale.
Got it.
So your lawyer fulfills all the normal legal requirements of a seller, and communicates and corresponds and deals with Matt's lawyer, the assignee buyer, who again is dealing with essentially everything all the exact same way as a purchase, back and forth. So then my lawyer, who would be, the assignor's lawyer, is basically sitting there kind of observing this transaction occurring, making sure it's all happening as per that agreement, but then also just making sure and coordinating with the two lawyers that any money still owed to me, the assignor, is going to be coming to me when the deals actually are closed and registered.
Got it.
So.
Absolutely. So there is some back and forth and dynamic between all three parties, and definitely if you are entering into any sort of agreement, it's important to understand every party needs a lawyer, and every party also just needs to be on track all the way through till closing, because all three parties are involved all the way through till closing. Now, lenders, you mentioned lawyers up to this point, but where do lenders play into effect here? Because there's a lot of deposits going around. So what's the dynamic of working with a lender in these assignment agreements?
Yeah, so I think the important thing that I would want to highlight, if you're gonna really focus a lot on like assignments and acquiring deals on assignment, or being the assignor. So if you want your portfolio to have a lot of that dynamic in it, it's really important to surround yourself with people who are also like-mindedly experienced in financing those transactions. For example, unfortunately, we had a deal where the financing would not come to the table, and it was an institution, like it was a bank, and they just did not understand or want to approve the financing with the assignment component to it.
Right.
So they would only finance the deal on the original purchase price, not the new assignment price. And so, as you would likely imagine, the assignee buyer needed part or all financing to do the whole deal with the assignment fee and the original buying part.
Right.
So it's really important, I think, to, like it always is, to surround yourself with people in the know, like people who know assignments. Just like it's important to make sure you surround yourself with people who know cottages and commercial properties and whatever the case may be, right?
Yep.
Don't take for granted that just because it's a mortgage broker that does real estate deals for single family acquisitions, people buying for personal use, that they are an expert in writing deals for assignments, right? Because that is probably, like I'd say, on 30% of assignment deals. If we're, either for the seller, the assignor, or the assignee, we definitely see that as a touchy point or a sore point that most of the time we get resolved. Like most of the time it's an education thing.
Yeah.
Most of the time they just don't understand, like, what do you mean what is this assignment fee? Like this doesn't seem right, or something seems off, or they just don't get it, right? But it's completely legal. It's a completely legal thing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's people have been doing it for years, years and years doing it, and it's just become so popular as a real estate investment tool and part of people's portfolios that it's just so well known now, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's coming to the forefront a lot more, but still a lot of people, especially on the finance side, either A, don't understand it, or B, just won't approve it. So you don't want to find that out like too far down the line, right? In the deal I spoke about, we got really lucky. They had like they had an emergency plan. They had some family funds that were able to do the deal, and then instead of using a mortgage to buy it, they just refinanced it after it closed in cash. So, you know, they got really fortunate that way. Not everybody's going to have a family plan B. So, you know, you don't want to get too far down the line and then not have you know, your ducks in a row and make sure the financing can happen.
Absolutely. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then the dynamic between the lender and the lawyer. Let's talk a little bit about that. So we have 3 lawyers involved. Who does what in terms of the actual finalization of the deal between the lender and the lawyer?
Yeah, so again, like the assignor's lawyer, which was the lawyer for me, I was party 2. Really, that lawyer is just kind of babysitting the 2 other parties, right? We're just making sure that Ryan gets his assignment deposit, Ryan gets his assignment fees, Ryan gets any of his other consideration from either party, right? When the deal closes. The assignee buyer, so the second buyer comes along, Matt, his lawyer is the one that's going to do all like the kind of the usual coordinating with, you know, the lender, with the mortgage rep, with the insurance company, doing the title search, all of that. They're doing almost all of that purchase component. The assignor's lawyer is really kind of sitting in the middle, just making sure nobody forgets about the assignment, because sometimes that's possible, right? Because these are the 2 parties, you know, yourself and Matt in our example, who are actually doing the transaction, actually closing. And so it's really easy if people aren't, you know, if you don't have an active assigner or an active, you know, lawyer for the assigner, it's really easy for you know, people just be like, okay, well, we closed, we're done, see you later, right? You know, they're not that worried about whether or not I get, you know, my money, right, per se. So even though it's a very singular and may seem like a small role in the process, is obviously super important to whoever the assigner is, right? And to that real estate investor who might be doing 50, 100 plus assignment deals in a year as an assigner, you know, they want to make sure their lawyer understands it and is collecting, obviously, confirmation of registration, all their deposits and fees, and then you're on to the next one.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it seems like a really great strategy in terms of ensuring that all parties are secure in the deal, and that there's actually multiple exit strategies here where you as buyer number 1 could just close on the property, or you could just assign it off to another party as one exit strategy. If you were to close on it, obviously you have any exit strategy in real estate investing, so either you flip it, you wholesale it, or you rent it out. So there's multiple strategies here, and this is just one of them. And in terms of any other considerations when interacting as a lawyer in these assignment deals, is there anything else that you've seen or that you can think of that would be of value here?
Well, I mean, I think with the, like, what you just mentioned is actually pretty important. Like, have your backup plans, right? Like, obviously, ideally, if you're the assigner, you know, you want to see an effective and completed assignment deal. You know, you want to see it go, you know, Rebecca to Ryan, Ryan to Matt, Matt close with Rebecca. Like, that's what you want to see happen. But I mean, I think it's really important. You want to make sure you have, you know, your plan B, your plan C. And as you alluded to just moments ago there, you know, plan B might be like, hey, if I need to, like if this assignee, you know, doesn't come through on it, I'm going to close on it, right? Like, I want to close on this deal if they can't, right? Or maybe conversely to that, you know, plan C is make sure you've got something in your actual original agreement and then the assignment agreement that sets out, hey, as an assigner, I'm off the hook if the assignee can't close.
Right.
You know, if you're an experienced and you know, multiple time assigner, most of the ones that we see doing that all the time will have verbiage in the agreement that say, look, I'm off the hook. So as a seller, if this guy doesn't close, or this girl or this company doesn't close on the assignment, you can't come after me. You can come after them for breach of agreement, but you can't come after me. And then, some of them will go into detail of, the deposits are all forfeited and so forth, right?
Yep.
So that's probably, kind of your plan C also, that, to cover your butt if you're the assignor, that you want to try to start building in if you're not already building that kind of verbiage and language into your agreements.
Absolutely, and I think it is important to take a look at what language you have in your agreements and what your actual why is at the end of the day. Like, if you ultimately are looking at this deal as a deal that you want to take down, but you have Matt who comes along and he's just like, hey, like, if you just let me take down this deal, I'll pay you X amount for it. Okay, cool, I still want to take this deal down. Just make sure your language suits what you're trying to accomplish, and work with an expert. Work with somebody who does assignment deals in your power team, like the Carson Law team. They definitely have dealt with a lot of different real estate investing strategies. So it's important that you actually talk to your lawyer, talk to your lender, and understand exactly what you're trying to do with the project and the property, and have multiple plans set up just like any deal. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for tuning in for another episode on the Canadian Real Estate Channel. And guys, if you want more great content like this, make sure you tune in regularly to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. Hit the subscribe button as well, and make sure you smash that like button, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.